We the People is brought to you by Team Kennedy.
We the people!
They're going to fight, and we all have to learn to start talking with each other. And we have to focus on things that we believe in. The king and queen look out of their castle and they say, we're okay, because everybody's fighting each other and nobody's coming over the wall for us. And, I want to lead you all over that wall, stop the rancor, and take back our country.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into News Talk 790 KABC. I am your host, Jake Underwood, and this is We the People. It's brought to you by the Kennedy Campaign, and this is where we'll tell you the things that the mainstream media might not be telling you. There's a lot of stuff going around, especially this week. They must have seen a poll that got them very nervous. What do I mean by they? I mean the higher echelon of the right and the higher echelon of the left, because they are just pouring it on thick this week, ladies and gentlemen. They are doing everything they can, including, did you know that everybody that was in Washington, D.C. on January 6th is apparently a rioter? Every single one of them. And everybody who is in Washington, D.C. on January 6th is a huge Donald Trump supporter. Don't know if you knew that. So Nancy Pelosi, huge Trump supporter. Chuck Schumer, huge Trump supporter. Don't know if you knew that. Well, because that's what the media is putting out there. So anybody who took part in January 6th is a huge Trump supporter. Aren't you glad you know that now? What would we do without the mainstream media? What would we do without the mainstream media telling us the same thing over and over again, 6 times a day, every other hour? I know, I used to be a news anchor. What would we do without them? They don't talk about policy. They don't talk about the fact that people are broke. They don't talk about any of that. They don't talk about the fact that inflation, did you see this last week? Inflation is up 37% from this time last year. Did you see that? Was that a headline? That was one of those quick ones. You know what I mean? When you're listening and they're like, and inflation is up 37% from last year over year, when they do that. And they just slip it in real quick in between going, this person did this, and this person's evil, and this person's going to save our democracy. Inflation's up 37%. That's our news at the top. That's exactly what's going on. And if they don't, I don't know. I mean, at least where I worked, you might get a call from a news director. Well, why'd you lead with that? Well, people don't want that. People don't want to know about inflation. It's affecting them. Everything is up. 37%? That's a lot of money. We thought inflation was bad last year. And now it's even higher. So what are the things that we should focus on? What are the things that the media, these journalists, which this is part of the reason I got in to be a journalist, because I feel that it is a journalist's job to hold government responsible. And each network has their own person who's very good at it. So I'm not going to knock them. But are we doing this to report things, or are we doing this for clicks? I need to find out. I need to know. I may not have gotten the memo. Maybe I didn't get the memo. Did you get the memo? I didn't get the memo. People are struggling. It's hard. It's hard out here right now. And we're concerned about everything but the American people. We're being told that the one person who you can actually go and see his policies, and he has videos explaining his policies. Of course, I'm talking about independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's the only candidate that I know of that has actual videos explaining his policies available on a free platform for anyone to see. You don't even need a login to go on Twitter. You can just look it up and watch. especially because they're not age restricted. So anybody could go watch them. But no, he's the boogeyman. I don't know if you heard about this, but he was in Washington on January 6th. A lot of people were. It's a lot of people in Washington, D.C. Doesn't mean he's a Donald Trump supporter. But this is what they're going to do now. Remember a few weeks ago when we talked about that reporter from Blaze TV? That reporter who was arrested for doing their job? Now, if you're just in the area, you're guilty. Because no longer is it due process. No longer do we have due process when it comes to public opinion. We don't have that anymore. You're guilty because, well, we don't like what you had to say that one time. Guilty. Could you imagine if that's how it worked? Remember those videos from COVID that came from other countries where people were just walking down the street without a mask and they were thrown in jail? That was scary. But now you're guilty. We didn't like what you said 4 years ago while standing on the steps of a building in Washington, D.C. Guilty. Really? That's the route we're going to go. That's scary, isn't it? Because he's the only candidate who's talking about the problems that are affecting you. And me. He's the only one who's actually listening to people. You know what's crazy? And I've witnessed this. This isn't hearsay. This isn't, horse hockey, whatever you want to call it. I've actually seen people ask independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. questions. And if he doesn't know the answer, he'll send somebody to go get their information, whether it's an email or a phone number. And he'll actually call them. Or he'll actually write them an email. He might be the only candidate who actually is spelling things out. Because I know Donald Trump isn't. Donald Trump goes on the stage and talks about the beautiful audience. Look at this beautiful audience. The cameras aren't going to show them all. They're not going to. So many people here. Look at all of these people. Fantastic people. Wonderful people all here. That's what he says. By the way, do we have an answer on if he'd give Ukraine funding if he's elected? I haven't heard it either. And Joe Biden, I feel bad for Joe Biden on a human level. And I don't want it to sound I don't want this to sound mean. I really don't. And normally I don't care, but I mean this is I don't want to sound mean when I say this. The man was found unfit. He's not healthy enough to stand trial. That's not hearsay. That's not a lie. There's proof of that. So he's not fit to stand trial. And we see the problems. I feel bad for Joe Biden on a human level. He's gone through tremendous loss. I'm not going to go through it. We all know. Very sad, tragic losses. He's gone through a lot. And at this point, he should just be at home in Delaware or in Scranton, wherever he wants that home to be. And he should just be enjoying retirement. He should just be sitting in a chair, rocking back and forth, talking about the good old days. And instead, we have a party that, one, didn't even allow an opponent to get on a debate stage with them. Say what you want about the Republicans. They at least held debates. Now, Trump ran away with it, but they at least held debates. Democrats did not. I'm not saying anything that we don't know. We know this. We watched. Because if he's not fit to stand trial and he's not fit to do a debate, then why do we think that he's fit to run the country? I feel for the guy. On a human level, I feel for the guy. Because he should just be at home, sitting in his rocking chair, talking about corn pop. That's what he should be doing. Like, I'll get away from the personal stuff. I don't know his policies. I don't know what he's running on. We're building back better. Ask Baltimore about Build Back Better. Donald Trump, I don't know his policies. I hear nothing that he's standing for, except he will finish the wall. I heard him say that he's going to finish the wall. I know that he's going to finish it. But Biden also said he's going to finish the wall. So walls are being finished. And Donald Trump, I don't know his policies. I just know that he's back. But I know if I want to hear independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. policies, I just go to his YouTube page and I can watch Team Kennedy 24 on YouTube. I know where to find those. Those you can find easily. Don't know where to find the Trump policies. Don't know where to find the Biden policies. We have an action-packed show for you. Sorry, went off there a little bit. We have an action-packed show for you. We have one of the top volunteers for the Kennedy campaign, Renee Mitchell, coming up next after news. We're going to talk to National Advance Director Billy Zero. And after that, we will talk to Communications Director Del Bigtree. We'll get his opinion on what happened with Nicole Shanahan this past week with CBS taking some swipes, if you will. That and more when we return right here on News Talk 790 KABC. This is We the People.
Game of fate. Never mind these mortal wounds. The tore from us tomorrow's dreams. What I want to know, really want to know, what I want to know is what will in this broken heart.
This is We the People Radio, 790 KABC.
This was paid for by Team Kennedy.
Community server. Whether or not what's the purpose. That's why I'm standing on business.
And so, when I go in there, I'm going to fix it. People say, how are you going to? Our kids are now, we have passed on our kids. The last two presidents added, I think, $8 trillion to the deficit that our kids now have to pay back. We're now at $34 trillion. And and of course you can fake a strong economy by flooding it with cash. But somebody's going to pay for our joyride. And who is it? It's our kids. We've completely and utterly betrayed this generation of kids. We've loaded all of our problems onto them.
Welcome back to News Talk 790 KABC. This is We the People, of course, brought to you by the Kennedy campaign. And I have an event to tell you about, and we've talked about it a little bit over the last few weeks, but I just want to remind you, if you know anyone in the Detroit area that's going to be in town this weekend coming up, I want to remind you about the Night of Laughter with RFK Jr. and Friends taking place at the Royal Oak Music Theater. That's in Royal Oak, Michigan. That's, of course, going to be Sunday, April 21st. It starts at 7:30, and it's going to be an incredible night. Rob Schneider, Dave Landau, Heather J., Mike Binder, Trey Stewart, Erica Rhodes, and other surprise guests. Tickets start at $125, and there's an after party as well. More information can be found at Kennedy24.com. Go to the events tab and check that out. Something else I want to remind everybody about is make sure you go to your state's Facebook page. Usually it's RFK Jr. or Robert F. Kennedy Jr. 4, and find the official page. Since he can get on the ballot now, we could start collecting signatures, or make sure you have that information. And if family, anybody wants to sign that petition, once again, it doesn't mean you want to vote for him. It doesn't mean that you have to vote for him. It just means that you believe in democracy enough to say, you know what? I don't like the two-party system. I think we need another option in there to maybe keep the other two honest at the very least. But it's just saying that you believe in democracy enough, that you believe that there should be more people on that debate stage than just the two major parties. That's what it's saying when you sign up or sign a petition to get independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on the ballot. Somebody who has made a huge impact when it comes to spreading that word about independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is our next guest. And of course, that is the person leading the charge in New York, and that is Renee Mitchell. Renee, thank you so much for making time for us today.
You're welcome.
And so, Renee, let me ask you, what was it about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and this campaign that, what was it that hooked you?
Okay, for one, I'm a board member for the National Coalition for the Homeless. I'm also executive director of my own nonprofit. I'm also a strong advocate for the injustice. So when I actually start doing my research, okay, on Robert Kennedy, and I seen how he also was a fighter for injustice. Okay, he's going up against the housing market, Black Rock. He's going up against Big Pharma. Everybody knows Big Pharma is not in the business of helping people, okay, and getting people well, but they're in the business of keeping you sick, okay, because that's how they make their money. Okay, Black Rock, okay, is buying up all the housing market, okay, and my focus is the most vulnerable population, okay, which is the homeless population. And I'm constantly fighting, okay, to get people transferred out of shelters, to get people housing, to get people vouchers, okay, to put policies together, okay, to come to the table with Congress and elected officials, okay, to try to help the homeless people so that they can move towards self-sufficiency, so that they have options, that they put resources in these communities, and that they have wraparound services. And it's a massive system failure all across the board. And Robert Kennedy, I admire him because of the way he fights for the American people and the way he fights, okay, for justice, okay, for people to have clean water in the Hudson, okay, to build the restoration office, okay, to end wars, okay, to heal the divine, okay, to give home ownership to people that never had it, okay, and to go up against a big pharma. Okay, so that's what made me decide that I want to stand beside him and make sure that he has an opportunity, okay, to get into the White House. And also, 30 years ago, I'm a person with lived experience, okay? I was homeless, okay, me and my 4-year-old child. And I had to build myself up and use wraparound services and push myself out of poverty, okay, and push myself to self-sufficiency so that I have options. So I understand exactly where he's going with how he wants to lead this country. So I'm 100% in helping Robert Kennedy Jr., okay, become the next president,
And
along with his VP.
And I was actually, I would travel with the candidate, and I remember that, and it was in the video, and of course you could see the video on our YouTube page and our social media. And it's funny because I've heard your voice so many times, and then I hear the question that they played in the video that you asked in Brooklyn, and I went, oh, that's Renee. And it all started to kind of click and come together. So let me ask you, what is the reception that you're getting when you're out talking to people about independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., when you're holding the door hangers and you have the signs? What's the reaction you're getting from people?
Okay, the reaction I'm getting is that people want to move away from the two-party system. Okay, people feel that the Republicans does a lot of complaining with no solutions. People also feel the Democrats, okay, gaslight and put a bandage on things and instead of actually having a real solution, okay, to their issues and their problems. Okay, so they feel like neither party is doing anything for them, and they want transparency. They want change. This is what I got coming from me and my volunteers when we out there campusing, okay, on the ground, okay, hitting the pavement day by day, because it's a 24-hour thing with us, okay, to help Robert Kennedy Jr. get into the Oval Office.
And so let me ask you, if there's one thing that people should keep in mind about independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., when let's say hypothetically you get to be that last voice they hear before they walk into the booth to place a vote for president, what would you like them to know about Robert F. Kennedy Jr.?
That he will fight for the people, that he will declare your independence. He will give the country back to the people, and he will make it where, okay, this is a world where you can raise your kids. Okay, you don't have to worry about, okay, crime. You don't have to worry about homelessness. You don't have to worry about resources not being brought into your communities. Okay, this will be a place where, okay, you got some type of legacy to leave for your children, your grandchildren. Okay, and he will fight, okay, these corporations and companies, okay, to make sure that you're properly getting the proper medical care and health that you're supposed to get, okay, at a ZX or baby boomer.
All right, Renee, thank you so much for your time today. Real quick before we let you go, is there anything you want to say to the people that are listening, whether it be in California or listening on a podcast in a different state? What would you like to say to them about independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr.?
What I need to say to the people today is that, okay, under this government, we have a big debt problem. We have 2 wars going on. We got inflation. We got open borders. We got homeless all over the place. Neither parties have done anything to fix anything but put a bandage, okay, on it. If you really want transparency, if you really want change, okay, now's the time to go out and vote differently and vote for an independent candidate and vote for a man that's going to fight for his country and fight for the people, okay, and that is Robert Kennedy Jr. Thank you.
Renee, thank you, and have an incredible day. Thank you for making time for us.
Thank you. Have a blessed one.
And once again, thank you to Renee Mitchell for not only the hard work that she puts in for the campaign and going out and making sure people are aware that we do have a third choice. We have independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and you could see it in that video. Make sure you go to our YouTube page and you look at that video. And, of course, that YouTube page, you could look it up by going to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., just putting that up there in the search bar. Or I believe the @ is Team Kennedy 24, and you could see any of the videos that, we've talked about on this program that we've discussed here, especially when we had Jonathan Hiller on, who's, the mastermind behind a lot of those, and see different things that the campaign wants you to know and wants you to know that we're focused on. That is our YouTube page, Team Kennedy 24. Just look up Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And, of course, any questions you have about policy, whether or not, ballot access, all these different things, Kennedy24.com. That's where you'll get your answers. And if you want to get involved, you can by going to the website, and you can be involved like Renee Mitchell, which once again, you could just feel the energy. I love speaking with her. I really do. And she always gets you going. She gets the adrenaline going. So big thank you once again to Renee Mitchell. We're going to pause for news. And when we come back, we're going to talk to Billy Zero. He is our National Advance Director. And then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to talk to the man, the myth, the legend, the man himself, Communications Director Del Bigtree. That and more when we return.
For the last 60 years, we have been loyal to one political party, when the truth is that they're both wings on the same bird. The definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. It's time to come together as a people and stand on business.
This is We the People Radio, 790 KABC.
This was paid for by Team Kennedy. Welcome back to We the People right here on News Talk 790 KABC. I'm your host, Jake Underwood, and the next guest we have is somebody he's a busy guy. He's a busy guy, and you might even recognize him as the voice that right before we go to break reminds you that you're listening to We the People on News Talk 790 KABC. It is Billy Zero. He is the National Advance Director for Team Kennedy. Billy, thank you for making time for us today.
Wow. Thank you for having me, Jake. Pleasure to be here.
So let me ask you, because there's a lot that comes with the title of National Advance Director. What exactly is your job for people who don't know?
Well, I'm an events guy since I was 18, so I do events. And like many of us here at this campaign, I got my start just wanted to help heal the divide in this country. So I started as a volunteer. Last August, I started doing that. And by November, I found myself producing the kickoff for ballot access in the country in Annapolis, Maryland. And they hired me the next day. So I was an event guy who was not in politics, never, and landed right in the middle of politics. So when they hired me, they told me I was an event guy. So my title on my signature was actually events. Then I found out what advance was. I didn't know exactly what advance was. Advance is planning out all of the events that are happening, 45, 60 days out, and actually advancing everything about it, from security to location, what's actually happening there. Is it a ballot access event? Is it a fundraiser? Is it a speaking engagement? Is it a festival? So the advance team advances everything going on with the events in the campaign.
And so how tricky is it to find like the right venue? I mean, now you are experienced, so that probably helps a lot, but is it tricky trying to find the right venue? And like, is it harder than it looks?
It's extremely hard when you have so many things going on. So, we have assemblies coming up in Portland, let's say in June. That assembly in Portland, Oregon is very specific. So we have an event where you could have 2,000 people coming in to get Bobby on the ballot in that state in one day. So on that one day, on June 8th, in Portland, Oregon, we're going to assemble 2,000 people during the same 14 hours, maybe 12, maybe 6. If we're lucky, 4. Everybody walks in, they sign, we have the convention, we get them on the ballot. So that's just one event. And there's so many intricacies there with working with the field, the volunteers, the ballot access team, our legal team, promotions team, our copywriting, our event production team for day of, all the marketing that we do that goes into it. So Advance kind of touches everything going on in the campaign and is the hub for that event. So it's incredibly difficult from the venue and then actually just producing it, because we have to find the specific venue. When you have 2,000 people coming in and roaming for 4 to 6 hours, there's only a couple spaces that will work there.
Right.
And sometimes they're booked and sometimes we have to cancel. So it is difficult.
And of course, we're talking to Billy Zero. He's the National Advance Director for Team Kennedy. And if you want to see what events he's been working on, and if there are any near you, of course, you could go to Kennedy24.com, go to the events tab and click your state and see what's going on near you. So let me ask you, now we know what you do work-wise. Let me ask you, what is it that brought you to want to volunteer for independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? What was that message that seemed to strike a chord with you?
As an event guy, when COVID hit and they shut us all down, my entire world disintegrated. My friends, family, people that I knew for decades lost jobs, lost homes, lost businesses, lost clubs. And it just hurt my entire industry. I got very depressed from 2020 through 2021 as I watched my world disintegrate. And then the health and freedom aspect of it. So it was my industry, and a lot of our industries, from food service and restaurants and events, all went away. And then health and freedom kicked in. And so for me, it was health and freedom and, the ability to do business the way we wanted to and have autonomy over our bodies. And I just got up and I was like, I'm a 52-year-old man and I'm going to go volunteer in politics for the first time in my life to make a change and heal the divide.
Yeah, I think people need to remember how exactly everything was shut down and the effects that it had, because I worked in radio at the time, and you know this, Billy, we've talked about this, and I talked about it a little bit on air before, but just the way that the media industry has changed since COVID, with mass layoffs, lots of people getting fired. I was one of the lucky ones at the station I worked at in Cleveland to be brought back, but it was a 6-month furlough. And a lot of people dealt with things like that. So I can only imagine, what happened on the event side of it. And well, first, thank you for volunteering. I'm glad I get to work with you because you do an incredible job. So let me ask you, if you get to be that little voice in the ear of somebody as they're walking into the voting booth, and you get to be the last thing that they hear, what would you like them to know about independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr.?
We finally have a human that is on our level, that operates on the higher self, that operates to make us better. and operates without ego. And when you meet that man and you listen to that man, you start to understand that he is just like us. He doesn't think of himself as a higher person on a different economic level or status level. He considers himself like us and fighting for us like he has for the past 3 or 4 decades, working to make this country better. And I would just ask you, that person walking in to cast that vote, to think about the division that has been seeded in this country for the previous 15, 20, 25 years, and how it's just gotten worse and worse. And just think about the possibility of hugging someone you disagree with and then going to have dinner like they did in Congress and Senate in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, it's interesting because you bring up the human side. And we've heard from a lot of people. I think when Charles Eisenstein was on, he really spoke to the human side of Mr. Kennedy, and you can really see it. Just when he's talking to people, the coolest thing, the first time I met independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he'll actually look you in the eye. Like you can tell he's actually listening to what you say, and it's pretty cool because I in my years in media, I've talked to many politicians, and I guess Robert F. Kennedy Jr. isn't a politician. That's why we like him, but he actually looks you in the eye and he makes that connection. Billy, thank you so much for taking the time out for us today. And of course, like I said, if you want to see anything in your area that might be coming, that's rumored, if you hear something, always Kennedy24.com, go to the events tab, and you can see what Billy Zero has been working on. Billy, thank you again for taking the time out for us today.
Thank you so much, Jake. We the people.
And a big thank you to Billy Zero for making the time for us today. He is very busy. He's probably hopping on a Zoom call as we speak. What I want to do is I want to play a little clip from one of the rallies that we held not too long ago. I believe it was in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And Mr. Kennedy spoke. I just want you to get a taste, kind of a sense for the atmosphere that you get to be a part of when you go to a independent presidential candidate, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. rally.
Our political parties are, our leaders are censoring speech. Our political parties are stifling debate. They're trying to prevent candidates from running against a president by either suing them, like Donald Trump. And I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. That's why I'm running against him. But I don't think we should be a banana republic and remove candidates using the courts. Oh, Americans. I don't want to beat Donald Trump that way with half the country angry because they couldn't vote for a guy that they wanted. I don't want that resentment and that rancor to leave that. I don't want to win by cheating, by getting rid of somebody. And they're trying to prevent other people, me included, by denying us ballot access. The DNC is now announcing that it's litigating against me, to make sure that I can't get ballot access. And my answer to them is, why don't you get a candidate that people believe in? And then
That, of course, is independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. when he was speaking in Grand Rapids, Michigan, just putting it out there. He doesn't want to win by cheating. He doesn't want to win by censoring. He doesn't want anybody to their opinions, their thoughts, none of that. He doesn't want any of it to get shut down. Because he knows that experience. It's what happened to him. Having Twitter shut down, Instagram shut down. When he ran, he said, see if you could censor me now. And he's definitely making some waves, and he's gaining that momentum. And if you want to be a part of a rally like you just heard, if you want to go to one, or you want to see what events are going on in your area that Billy Zero may have put together, you can. Go into Kennedy24.com, go to the events tab, and you can see everything that's going on in your area. Or if you're going on vacation and you're like, you know what? I saw Bobby in my hometown. I want to see him somewhere else. Well, you can. It's Kennedy24.com right there in the events tab. When we return, we got to go to break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk to Communications Director for the Kennedy campaign, Del Bigtree. We'll be back.
This is We the People Radio, 790 KABC.
This was paid for by Team Kennedy. Welcome back to We the People right here on News Talk 790 KABC. I am Jake Underwood, and we welcome into the show. We talk to him each and every week. He kind of gives that review, that mindset of the campaign. That, of course, is Communications Director Del Bigtree. Del, thank you for making the time for us today.
Jake, it's my favorite time of the week to be here.
So I want to ask, because there's been a few things that happened this week, but the first thing I want to ask you about is, so just to put it in perspective for the listener, you know, last week CNN, they cut and sliced and did things that it made it sound like, you know, independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was saying that Biden is a bigger threat to democracy, when in reality he said I can make the argument that President Joe Biden is a bigger threat to democracy. And now they're trying to paint this picture that you know, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is in support of Donald Trump, and not only in support of Donald Trump, but is considered one of these quote unquote rioters from January 6th.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the only play that Joe Biden and the administration has now, right? They are failing in all the polls. And, you know, as we start to look around, poll after poll now, Donald Trump is running away with this. As everyone, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see what's going on here. We don't have Joe Biden in his prime. And if you think about it, Bobby ran as a Democrat. If he was really like for Trump, was he running as a Democrat? He was running as an option to try and put something up to compete with Donald Trump. Donald Trump just absolutely trounced his opponents. But let's be realistic. Like, the argument being made is that Bobby really wants Trump to win. A guy who spent his entire life fighting for the environment, is the most successful environmental attorney of all times, is dedicated to cleaning up the Hudson River, getting all the toxic pollutants out of the river. Oh, he's really for the guy that pulls back all regulations and says, whatever you want in the rivers, and we don't care. We're never going to charge you. That's everybody else's problem. A corporate entity that just cares about making money for himself and his cronies, crony capitalism at his worst. And then Bobby, who's been fighting that entire life. This statement is absolutely insane, but it shows how desperate now Democrats really are in this fight. So let's be really honest, because I think it's time for, you know, the wake-up moment, if you will, which is Biden can't win. Everybody knows that. It wasn't clear. It was clear the moment that, you know, it's basically he's not even ready to stand trial. That he's got mental, his capabilities are diminished. No one has to tell us that. We don't need a poll. We don't need a specialist. We're watching it on television. There's a reason why we never had a debate in the Democratic parties, in primaries. There's a reason why he won't meet with Bobby Kennedy. There's a reason why all the liberal media has tried to not let you see Bobby, because you would remember what it looks like to have a president that can speak eloquently, that's powerful, strong, not just charging up prayers, but charging in pull-ups and push-ups. I mean, but the issue now really comes down to who's this country going to be in the hands of? When we look at, we're on the verge of World War III here. We're having all of these issues, and it really comes down to this. Do you want Donald Trump or not? Because Joe Biden can't beat Donald Trump. And that is now clear to anybody that has blood moving through their blood vessels. There is a man that is in this for all the right reasons. Fighting for the environment, fighting for the middle class, something that Donald Trump knows nothing about, has never cared about. He moved, you know, billions of dollars from the middle class and right into the rich people in the world, to the Bezos and to the Bill Gates, and he'll do it again and again. If you really want to stop that, if you want to stop that circus that is our country when Donald Trump is ranting and raving and every media outlet is going crazy, if you want to stop that, there's only one person that can do that. And that is Bobby Kennedy, and that's why he's here. You know, he's polling, as we've said before, 26% in battleground states, and that's without the media letting you know who he is. Can you imagine once they realize, oh my, we only have one chance? When Democrats realize, let me look at policies. It's true, he did fight for my environment his whole life. He is trying to make sure that the food that my children eat is healthy. He's on the behalf of citizens, real people, against corporate capture and corruption. He is the anti-Trump if there ever was one. He's not owned by anybody. He's there for the people. And so, I'm so passionate about this now because it's really coming down to, are we going to be asleep at the wheel? Are we really going to just take this country right back to Donald Trump? Because the truth is, the vote for Joe Biden now is going to be a vote for Donald Trump.
Something else for people to keep in mind. Look up Scott Gottlieb, who he worked for, then what position he held in the Trump administration, and then who he went back to work for, and remember Operation Warp Speed, and go from there. Switching it up a little bit, Del, I want to ask you. Yeah. So CBS put some stuff out about vice presidential candidate Nicole Shanahan, about some congressmen reaching out. That response from Nicole Shanahan was incredible.
Well, it was really an amazing exchange. And, if you're reading it, what you get out of it is that, Karen Nicole Shanahan is, as we know, she was a big donor for the Democratic Party. Clearly, she has this friend in Representative Ro Khanna. It sounds like they had a conversation beforehand when she was considering Bobby and saying, I'm thinking about doing this. And he gave her his blessing. He said, and she was probably, looks like in her response, he was saying to her, you know what? No one, you shouldn't let the Democratic Party bully you around. Everybody has the opportunity to right, to right the wrongs or run for something if they think they can make it. So good luck to you. But then it comes around and ends up publicly bullying her, telling her she's just going to ruin it for Biden and she should leave Bobby and come back to the Democratic Party. And then she ends up pointing out, you had my phone number. We could have had this conversation. The fact that you're going public means, you're obviously just working for the DNC to you. I mean, I'm paraphrasing. Everybody should see the eloquence with which she stated it. But it just shows you how really all this has gotten, that even your friends will be turned on you. But it's the same issue, right? You have incredible candidate as vice president now that also, just like Robert Kennedy Jr., declared her independence. Why? Because she too realizes, as every Democrat's going to have to, at one moment or another, Joe Biden is going to lose this. When we were talking to Nicole, when you see the passion she has for this country, see how, she is very, very concerned about Donald Trump winning this election. She's worried for all the same reasons, all the work, regenerative farming, organic farming, fixing our supply, getting big ag, big pharma, big oil out of our government. All of those things is who Donald Trump works for. As you pointed out, Scott Gottlieb literally just took the right from the from the middle of the funding, the industry itself, and put it right inside of his cabinet. Then makes a vaccine, rushes it on everybody. Everybody makes $100 billion, and that guy goes back to work in the pharmaceutical industry. That's crony capitalism at its worst. But let's be really clear here, Jake. Nicole Shanahan does not lose this for Joe Biden. Bobby Kennedy does not lose this for Joe Biden. Joe Biden doesn't need any help losing. Joe Biden is losing this for Joe Biden. And the DNC is losing this for America because they didn't give America another choice. They didn't get some youthful and brilliant that has fought for this nation, that's ready to stand toe-to-toe and show that type of mental acuity, that incredible reason, that historical ability to look back and reference the times in the world and why we find ourselves here. That's what Bobby Kennedy is going to do on the debate stage. That's who he is. He's going to show you how incapable Donald Trump is. We don't need to put down Joe Biden. He's had his time. He's past his time. This is no longer about him. This is about America, and this is about stopping Donald Trump. And I think that's why Shanahan is here. I know it's why Robert Kennedy Jr. is here, and that is why we're going to win. It's just how going to have to wait before people wake up to the idea that this is the moment? This is the decision. Do you vote for Joe Biden and pray and wish that you know what's going to happen? Trump's going to win. Joe Biden won't be able to stand on a debate stage. He will not be able to handle all of that pressure as we're seeing right now, and Donald Trump's going to walk away with this. That's what we are up against now. That's why I think it's so important for everyone to at least go and look at all policies around Bobby Kennedy and Nicole Shanahan and ask yourself, boy, can you imagine a world where people care about the food I'm eating, care about ending this chronic disease epidemic that is affecting 60% of our children, are going to use the institutes, the National Institutes of Health, Health and Human Services, FDA, CDC, to actually investigate why my kids are so sick, why they have asthma, why they have allergies, why they have peanut allergies, why they have lupus, why they have ADD, ADHD, instead of protecting Coca-Cola and the sugar companies and protecting all of the fake foods and sugar smacks and sugar cereals and all the garbage and colored foods that are somehow slipping through the FDA, all the pesticides, all the herbicides that are poisoning even the vegetables when we're trying to be healthy, all of the hormones and all the antibiotic drugs in our meat, in giant dirt lots where all they do is live in their own defecation, instead of beautiful green pastures and regenerative farming and healthy, happy animals. There's a better world ahead. Robert Kennedy Jr. and Nicole Shanahan, that's why I'm here, Jake. I'm stating my opinion very passionately now. I want a future for my children. So does Nicole Shanahan. So does Robert Kennedy Jr. And we don't believe that's going to happen in Donald Trump's hands. And we are really being realistic when we say Joe Biden can't win this now. It's time for some new energy. It's time for a new vision. It's time for the future.
That, of course, is Communications Director Del Bigtree. Thank you for your time, not only to Del, but to you, the listener. Any questions you have about anything we covered today, feel free to go to Kennedy24.com. Check that out for yourself. And until next time, I've been Jake Underwood. You have an incredible week.
It's up to you. It's strictly up to you. But it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
This is We the People Radio, 790 KABC.